Some stories never really die in this league. They just go quiet and wait for the right moment to test how serious everybody is about winning. A superstar in the late stage of his prime. A dynasty core that refuses to accept the word over. A front office that already proved it's willing to live in the deep end. And a fan base that remembers exactly how unstoppable the blueprint looked the last time all the pieces lined up. Welcome back to Warriors News Fan Report. It's me with you again, talking directly to every real Dub Nation fan who stays for full games, full seasons, and full context. If you're here, you're not just chasing thumbnails. You're here to understand what's actually behind the noise. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the real trail behind the idea of Kevin Durant back to the Golden State Warriors. What actually happened in the last 2 seasons? What was serious and what wasn't? Why this rumor refuses to disappear? How a reunion would look on the floor and on the cap sheet, and under which conditions it could shift from fantasy thread to legitimate conversation. Stay with me until the end, because I'm not here to sell you a fake "it's done." I'm here to show you why this storyline still matters for our future, even now that Durant has chosen another path. First, we need to be adults about the timeline, because that's what separates real analysis from pure fiction. Over the last cycle, there were concrete moments where a Warriors-Durant reunion was not just fan fiction. There were reports of Golden State exploring frameworks with Phoenix when the Suns were clearly wobbling, internal discussions about flipping young assets and picks to maximize Stephen Curry's window, speculation from national outlets, and later confirmation that the Warriors had indeed pushed to see if a deal was possible. There was talk at the deadline of serious interest from our side. There were pieces outlining packages built around Jonathan Kuminga and other young pieces. And there were insider notes that made one thing clear. Golden State was at least willing to pick up the phone. Then, piece by piece, the picture sharpened. Reliable reporting indicated Durant had no desire to return at that moment. Later on, he himself acknowledged that a potential trade back to the Warriors had been on the table, and that he personally shut it down, citing timing, disruption, and the weight of everything attached to that chapter of his career. That's not fantasy. That's on record. And if you understand how front offices think, that alone makes this conversation structurally different from random superstar edits on social media. They tried once. It almost happened. That history is real. From there, the league moved, and moved fast. The Warriors pivoted and went all in on a very different but equally aggressive path, bringing in Jimmy Butler to inject edge, two-way production, and playoff equity next to Steph and Draymond. That shift paid off in credibility. Golden State proved it still knew how to think big, still knew how to take a swing that fit its identity. At the same time, Durant's trajectory took another turn. After the Suns saga and those aborted talks, he eventually landed in Houston, where he just put pen to a 2-year extension with a player option, publicly committing to help lead a young, loaded roster and even leaving money on the table to give them flexibility. Right now, that's the contractual truth. Kevin Durant is under control, highly paid, and loudly invested in the Rockets project. If we stop Aqui, the lazy read is, end of story, Warriors talk is dead. But that's not how you or I should look at it, because what the last 18 months showed us is that both sides, at different moments, were at least close enough to seriously consider it. The Warriors' front office explored what a reunion would cost before opting for Butler. Durant admitted that Golden State was one of the paths he actively evaluated. There were real reasons it didn't happen. Mid-season timing, emotional baggage, questions around Steve Kerr's future, concerns about narrative fatigue, and his desire to control the final chapters of his career on his own terms. Those reasons mattered then. But in this league, situations are not permanent. Coaches change, cores age, supporting casts reshuffle, relationships evolve. Extensions preserve value and stability. They do not erase leverage, they do not erase memory, and they definitely don't erase basketball logic. So what are the factable pillars that keep the Durant to Warriors storyline alive as more than pure fan fiction even after Houston? 1. We know for a fact the Warriors have already done internal homework on KD's fit and price in the post-Brooklyn, post-Phoenix era. 2. Multiple reputable outlets have reported that Golden State was in the mix conceptually when Phoenix looked at its options, before Durant vetoed the idea. 3. Steve Kerr, Bob Myers' replacement structure, and the core have publicly spoken with respect about Durant's time here, keeping the door reputationally open even when he himself pushed it shut. 4. Durant has acknowledged the unique on-court chemistry he had with Curry and how easy basketball felt in this system. Combine that history with the Warriors' DNA, aggressive, star-friendly, willing to sacrifice youth for rings, and you understand why. If Houston ever hit turbulence or decided to retool, our name would resurface in any serious room. None of that means it's happening. It does mean that, unlike 20 random teams, Golden State has precedent, fit, and ethos that make the idea at least structurally coherent. Now let's talk hoop, because if this doesn't make sense on the floor, I'm not interested and neither are you. Imagine a version of this roster where Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant share the big moments. Forget the tabloid angle. Look at the geometry. The Warriors today are built around layers of creation. Steph's gravity, Butler's physical drives and mid-post reads, Draymond's playmaking and backline command, plus young pieces who can cut, defend, and attack closeouts. They've already moved back closer to the identity that made them dangerous: pace, cutting, switching, decision-making. Dropping Durant into that ecosystem, yes, even an older version, is not nostalgia, it's optimization. You'd be adding one of the most efficient high-volume scorers in league history into a structure he already dominated in, surrounded by players he knows how to read and who know how to read him. Late clock? You have Curry pick and roll, Butler mismatch hunt, or Durant at the elbow. Semi-transition? KD trailing into threes as defenses panic about Steph. Half court? Split cuts, ghost screens, flare actions with 2 all-time shooters and a mid-range assassin. There is no coverage that stops all of that without giving up something clean. Defensively, is it 2017 again? Of course not, but it doesn't need to be. You're talking about a group that, even older, has length, IQ, and playoff reps stacked. Butler can take primary wings. Durant can function as a weak-side helper and switch option. Draymond can anchor and quarterback. And the front office can plug athletic role players to eat regular season minutes. In the postseason, where rotations tighten and possessions slow, that brain trust can still manufacture stops through versatility and preparation as long as minutes are managed. The idea is not to time travel. It's to leverage familiarity to create a margin of error other teams don't have. Then comes the ugly part: cost. Any credible path to Durant now with years left and high money starts brutal. You're gutting a meaningful chunk of your young core, sacrificing multiple first-round picks and swaps, and diving deep into second-apron territory with all the constraints that come with it. Limited mid-level tools, restrictions on aggregation, no easy reset button. You're saying we are okay living as an all-in, veteran-heavy machine for a tight window, because we believe a Curry-Butler-KD-Draymond group gives us a real shot at another title. That's not something you do lightly. But here's the key. We know this front office is willing to consider that caliber of move because they already tried the prototype and walked right up to the line with Durant discussions before shifting to Butler. That's the factual thread. The Warriors are not philosophically against the idea of KD back. They were practically close until he said no. And that's where I shift from pure reporting context to talking straight to you, because this is the part that actually belongs to us. This channel, Warriors News Fan Report, doesn't exist to throw KD is coming home in the title with a fire emoji, milk your click, and move on. That's not the standard I hold for myself, and it's not the standard I believe Dub Nation deserves. What I'm doing here is using this possibility, this constructed but informed scenario, as a live X-ray of who we are as a basketball community and what we really expect from this front office. A potential Durant return, even living only in theory for now, forces us to sit with two truths that pull in opposite directions, but are both real. On one side, you have the Warriors' identity that defined a generation, the boldest, most unapologetic operation of the modern era, the team that doesn't flinch in front of big money, heavy narratives, or uncomfortable reactions if the end game is winning at the highest possible level. The team that once looked at the rest of the league and basically said, if it makes basketball sense and it leads to banners, we'll live with whatever noise comes next. On the other side, you've got the world we live in now, the new CBA punishing stacked payrolls, the value of Jonathan Kuminga turning from prospect into pillar, Brandon Podziemski looking like a real long-term piece, younger role players and future picks representing the bridge beyond Stephen Curry's timeline, and a legitimate argument that says you don't burn all of that for one more dance unless you are absolutely sure it turns the lights all the way back on, and that's the tension we have to be honest about. Because if in a year or two things start to shift, if Houston recalibrates, if dynamics inside that organization evolve, if Durant ever quietly looks back at the version of basketball where everything clicked and considers giving it one more run in a system he mastered, what do we want our front office to be in that moment? Do we want them prepared with a serious, painful, but rational offer, already clear on what they're willing to give up and why, because they still believe that when a historically great fit becomes even 5% available, you are obligated to explore it? Or do we want them so committed to gradualism, to preserving every asset and every layer of flexibility, that they don't even pick up the phone, that they decide the risk to the post-Steph era is too big to justify even entertaining that level of move? Neither posture is inherently wrong. One is a declaration of maximalist ambition. The other is a statement of structural discipline. The only mistake is pretending this question doesn't matter. For me, as someone who watched Durant and Curry turn playoff basketball into a math problem opponents couldn't solve, as someone who remembers exactly how close this organization already came to reuniting them before roles, timing and emotion got in the way, I can't sit here and act like this idea is completely insane. There is a version of reality where the fit still makes an absurd amount of sense on the floor. But I also refuse to lie to you and present it as simple, clean, or guaranteed. It would be expensive, emotionally loaded, and brutally unforgiving if it went wrong. It would demand sacrifices that go way beyond swapping depth pieces. It would reshape how this franchise operates for years. That's why I keep hammering this point. This isn't about hyping a fantasy. It's about sharpening our sense of what kind of decisions we're comfortable asking this front office to make in Steph's remaining elite years. So let me bring this home with the straightforward version, because that's the respect I owe you when we talk about a name this heavy. Today, right now, Kevin Durant is a Houston Rockets player on a fresh extension, publicly aligned with their project, part of their competitive plan. There is no agreement with the Warriors. There is no active deal in place. There is no credible report saying he is maneuvering his way back to San Francisco. None. The honest status of Durant to the Warriors sits in the realm of informed speculation, shaped by three concrete things. First, the verified attempts at a reunion that came much closer than most fan bases realize in the recent past. Second, the documented mutual respect, basketball chemistry, and stylistic fit between Durant and the Warriors' core, which hasn't disappeared just because time passed. And third, the reality that Golden State is one of the very few franchises structurally, culturally, and competitively built to even contemplate adding that kind of max-level star if circumstances around him ever fundamentally changed. As long as those three pillars exist, people who cover this league seriously will keep that scenario filed away, not as it's happening, but as this is one of the few places where, if the universe twisted just right, it wouldn't be crazy. If that door stays locked forever, the Warriors are still in a strong position with what they've built around Steph, Butler, Draymond, and the next wave. If it ever opens even a crack, the choice to step through or stay out won't just be another transaction. It will be a defining statement about whether this era values calculated audacity or disciplined continuity. And now I want you fully in this conversation with me, because this is where Dub Nation's brain has to match its heart. If, hypothetically, sometime in the next couple of seasons, the front office had a real, legitimate opportunity to bring Durant back at a heavy but not suicidal cost. Multiple first-round picks, one of the key young pieces, long-term tax pain, real rotation shakeup. Are you in or are you out? Do you look at a Curry, Butler, KD, Dre core, even older, and say, yes, that's enough talent, experience, and playoff equity to justify resetting our flexibility and building the rest with role players? Or do you look at that same move and say, no, that's chasing a ghost? It's repeating an old chapter instead of committing to the future we've started writing with Kuminga, Pods, and whoever else emerges. How far would you personally go before the price becomes too high? 2 picks, 3 picks, swaps, both young cornerstones. And beyond the trade machine, what does this storyline as to do? Those almost deals, those quotes, those constant speculations tell you about how the Warriors should think their next big step. Is the right model another superstar swing the moment a window opens? Or is the right model squeezing every ounce out of Steph's leadership while gradually handing the keys to the next generation and resisting the temptation of one last mega move? Drop your take in the comments, but do it with reasoning, not just emotion. This community is strongest when we talk like people who understand that championships don't show up because we manifest them. They show up when a front office has the courage to make hard, sometimes unpopular choices that align perfectly with a coherent identity. Use this Durant scenario as a way to clarify what you want that identity to be, and if you want every serious rumor, every verified update, every realistic trade framework, and every long-term strategic decision around our Golden State Warriors broken down at this level. Calm, detailed, passionate, and always loyal to Dub Nation. Make sure you're subscribed to Warriors News Fan Report. Hit like, turn on notifications so you don't miss when something real actually drops. And share this video with that friend who still sends you KD back to the Bay edits at 2 a.m. and insists there's a way. Whatever comes next, a quiet, methodical offseason, a sharp mid-tier move, or a blockbuster twist none of us are seeing yet, I'll be right here with you. Play by play, contract by contract, rumor by rumor, making sure that every possibility we talk about actually makes sense for our Warriors and for the standard this franchise is supposed to live up to.